Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL Draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by other prospect experts here at the Hockey Writers, Peter Baracchini and Dayton Reimer. Guys, we're in the middle of the Memorial Cup now, and we have some players that have stood out, so we're going to talk about that. And then we also got the CHL awards were announced. The finalists were announced a few days ago. Actually, it was announced the evening we recorded last episode. So we've got some finalists, and we'll predict some of them, some tough ones in this year, because there's quite a few standouts in the CHL. So that's going to be fun. Peter, how's it going?
Yeah, going great. Memorial Cup is just about to wrap up. We're in the final stretch right now. We're getting a better picture of the playoff picture, if you want to call that, among four teams. But yeah, it's coming together. And then there's a combine, there's a draft. It's going to be a busy next couple of weeks, really.
Yeah, we're a few days away from June, so that's where all the stuff wrapping up for the draft, and lots of fun stuff coming up. And Dayton, how's it going?
Oh, pretty good. Yeah, just having fun diving into draft stuff. Let's get it going. I love it.
For sure. Yeah, I got one more profile to do, and I hope to do a few more up to the draft. We've still got a month to go. But yeah, lots of stuff on the Hockey Writers website. We've got the draft guide going strong. We're closing in on 100 profiles. We got a bunch of features out. All the positional rankings are out. So lots of stuff to look at. So take a look at all that on the website there. And of course the Substack, which we got a lot of fun stuff there that Dayton's been putting out the last few weeks too. So lots of stuff to look at. All right. Well, let's move into our Memorial Cup discussion again and talk about some standouts from each of the teams. There's all the games have been pretty high scoring. The first one, Moose Jaw and Saginaw was a 5-4. It was 4-0 for London. London's has 2 wins already. 4-0 against Drummondville and 5-4 against the Warriors. So and Saginaw's got a couple wins as well. So the teams that we were talking about being good. Moose Jaw hasn't gotten their first win yet, which we're like, oh, they're going to be so dominant. But they're still looking for their first win. So, Peter, I'll start with you. Let's start with the London Knights. I mean, that undefeated so far. Their next game was against Saginaw, who's another undefeated team, on the 29th. So, anyone that stood out for you so far?
Yeah, basically a rematch of that, conference final matchup, really, between London and Saginaw. And yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting game, to say the least. But like you said, I mean, because this London Knights team is so deep and so talented, there's like plenty of standouts that you could mention right off the top. I mean, like you look at the top, I mean, the top scoring is like fairly like spread out amongst everyone. But like, Ruslan Gazizov is leading the way for London with 3 goals. Oliver Bonk has 3 points. Kasper Halttunen has scored some really good goals, including that, one-timer blast against Moose Jaw, where, they didn't have the best start, but they managed to, push their way through. You're getting the depth from Sam O'Reilly. And I haven't even mentioned Denver Barkey or Easton Cowan yet, because that's how good of a team this is. You're getting contributions from all over the place. Max McHugh setting up plays, being a tough in-your-face customer, and, even dropping the gloves. There's just not one name to choose from on this London Knights team, because everyone is stepping up in a big way. The first game against Drummondville, I think, was probably a bit of a complete effort. I think they were a little bit, flat-footed in the first few minutes, but then they got their footing going against Moose Jaw. But I do think that, they managed to, not necessarily learn from that, but they managed to improve upon mid-game as a result of that. And that's why this team is basically one of the front runners because of how well and how resilient they can be. Even when, they don't have the best start and they're down 1-0, they can claw their way back because they do have the talent and the depth because of majority of the players that I just mentioned right now. So, but if I do have to pick one name that is standing out, so far right now, I don't want to get too much into this because I had this player. You know what? I'm not even going to mention it. I'm just going to keep it as a surprise. I mentioned one of those players on the London Knights as my prospect of the week. I want to leave it to everybody else to try and figure it out. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right. Sounds good. Dayton, we'll move on to the Moose Jaw Warriors. I mean, like I said, they haven't gotten any wins yet, but they have scored some goals. We all know they can score. It's just, they haven't been able to keep them out of their own net so far. So anyone that has stood out, obviously not the goaltender. I mean, maybe. I mean, he was pretty good in the first game, even though there was 4 goals against. Who has stood out for the Warriors for you?
Well, if you remember from last podcast, I mentioned that an X factor for Moose Jaw would be starting strong quickly. Because in their series against the Blades, which I was most familiar with them in, they let go several giant leads and then they clawed their way back up and won. And it appears that they are continuing to try to do that because I believe they got down 4-0 against Saginaw and climbed back to a 5-4 loss. It was something wild like that. A 3 or 4 goal deficit that they had to overcome, and they basically did. Just not for the win. Very similar against the London Knights. It was more of an even matchup, I guess. They kind of exchanged goals, but 2 goals in the third almost got them back up, but they lost 5-4. So believe it or not, I am picking the goalie, Jackson Unger, as my standout. He shuts it down when the game is on the line. He has done really well, and his stats do not reflect that. He's got a very low save percentage. Is it the lowest? Let me just pull her up here. It's close. Yeah, it's the lowest with an 844. It's not great. I get it. But in the game against London, he didn't allow a goal after allowing 5 in the first 2 periods. And it was about halfway through the second period that it's just no more goals get allowed. First game, he was facing 36 shots and managed to save 31 of them. That's a pretty good number. 20 of those shots came in the first period, I think. He's been doing everything that the Warriors have needed him to. Unfortunately, the Warriors haven't been doing everything that they needed to. So I think Unger has been one of the better players. The Warriors just haven't been able to come together as a complete team yet. And unfortunately, there's only 1 game left.
Yeah. It was a 4-0 lead that they came back. So yeah, they came back, didn't tie it, but came it to 4-3. And then there was Bloom scored to make it 5-3, and then they scored again. But yeah, it is they can definitely score goals, and that can maybe get them far. But yeah, I mean, Unger's been okay. It's been pretty good for what, like you say, for what for what amount of goals that have been allowed. He's still been pretty good, so that's good. All right, Saginaw Spirit. I mean, they're undefeated. They've been scoring a lot and also allowing a lot. I mean, they're this 4-3 win, and they say the 5-4 win against Moose Jaw, and almost blew the 4-0 lead, but ended up hanging on to win 5-4. A lot of their guys have been scoring. You're looking at Josh Bloom scored. You got Owen Beck scoring a goal. I mean, all their main guys are doing it. I don't know if there's been a real big standout. I mean, I'd say if you want to pick one, it's probably Zane Parekh. I mean, Parek's been, we talked about him not being as prominent in the playoffs, but in this Memorial Cup, like I said, it's a short tournament. If he can get going, and in the first game he had a goal and 2 assists, and that was all on those to start the game. He had a couple assists in the first period, and actually had all his points in the first period. The goal and 2 assists came in the first on that 4-0 lead. So, I mean, Parekh I believe, shares the lead in the shares the lead in the tournament right now in points. He's got 4. So, I mean, he's making a case already to be one of the better players. I mean, I don't know about MVP yet. We'll see how it all plays out as the end it goes, but he's off to a great start. I would say Parekh has been my standout for Saginaw overall, and that's I mean, we're expecting him to be one of the better players in this tournament because he's one of the top guys to be drafted in potentially the top 10, top 15. So, I mean, it's good that he's performing in this type of tournament so far. So we'll see what he does tonight. They do play. Do they play tonight? No, they don't. They play London the last game, and it's Moose Jaw Drummondville tonight as we're recording. So the last 2 games, and then we've got all the playoff type tiebreaker potentially. But yeah, I'd say Saginaw's done a pretty good job for a team that didn't win the championship, that they were just brought in. But like I say, very talented team still. All right, who wants to take Drummondville's standout so far? Peter, you wanna start us off with who stood out for the Voltigeurs? I mean, they haven't won yet either. They lost to Saginaw and the London Knights. So
yeah, I'm gonna take Vsevolod Komarov. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Did about as good as any of us could.
yeah.
3 points in 4 games in the Memorial Cups, 5th round pick of the Buffalo Sabres in 2022, and he has just been absolutely dynamic for the Voltigeurs on the back end. We talk about how Parekh is dynamic for the Spirit. We've talked about Mateychuk. We talked about Dickinson, Bonk, George, how they're all carrying their own weight for London. Komarov is doing just that, and he's been dancing out there for the Voltigeurs. In any situation. I remember the last game that I was watching too. He was just, entering the zone, dancing around players, making slick moves here and there, and just feathering passes in the cross seams. I mean, it was like he had eyes in the back of his head, and it was just absolutely phenomenal to watch him take control of shifts and take control of momentum during the game to try and give his team that little bit of push and energy that they needed. So he's been a big standout for me for Drummondville. It probably could have picked, one of their forwards, but then again, whenever something that needed to happen, or whenever a play is being unfolded or is happening, it's a result of Komarov. Whether it's him taking charge on the rush, activating in the offensive zone, he's doing it all because he's doing everything he wants to or doing everything he can in order to win. So he's been a big factor for me and one of the players that I've been impressed with.
All right, Dayton, do you have any one that you kind of that stood out for Drummondville?
Yeah, I've been kind of impressed with some of their lesser known guys, specifically Luke Woodworth. So he's undrafted, 20-year-old. He was the captain this year, I believe. Yeah. And, he had a pretty decent season, 21 goals, 62 points, 62 games. Came alive in the playoffs, 24 points in 19 games. And the Voltigeurs have had real trouble scoring. He is one of the guys who's got a goal, and he's second on the team with 8 shots. The leader, Alexei Gandron, does not have a goal yet. He's got 10 shots. So you're getting a lot of good performances from their veterans. Ethan Gauthier hasn't really stepped up yet, and you'd kind of hope that from their top scorer. So it's nice seeing that Luke Woodworth has continued to remain one of their top guys, and maybe this results in a free agency. He's still up for the draft. I don't think he gets called. It's just a little too small, not as offensively powerful, but these are the guys that you need when the games are on the line. You need your whole team to step up, and good on the captain for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see if they can get a win in their last chance here.
I would hope not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, these are both what is it? Both teams haven't won a game, so you're gonna have one team win a game. Their first one this. But yeah, I mean, the thing is when you're playing against teams that are probably better defensively, because I mean, we all know the QMJHL is not the most offensively or not the most defensively inclined league. They're more offense. So I mean, yeah, it's Drummondville Moose Jaw tonight, so we'll see if one of those teams can get a win. I mean, one of them will. I mean, obviously, but we'll see which one does. All right. Well, before we move on to our CHL awards predictions, got to remind everyone of our Substack. I mentioned at the beginning, but Dayton, anything in the works coming out soon?
Yes, I am working on my updated draft ranking. So that'll be coming out in the next week or two, hopefully. If it you guys would know, draft rankings are a pain to put together, but a lot of fun. And I'm trying to expand it beyond my top 40 to get into like a top 60, maybe a top 80. We'll see where my stamina lies after that. I'd like to do some more looks at the CHL, which I did a little bit, I think, last month. Just kind of a check-in on who is improving their draft stock the most with a good playoff performance to the finish, or good U18s, or a good Memorial Cup. Lots of tournaments to end the year. And then, as always, there will be a new WHL Journey coming out next month. So episode number 4, if you didn't catch number 3, that was Prince Albert. That was low key one of my favorites, and you should read why.
All right, I'll check that out. Like I say, lots of stuff coming out in Substack, the website, lots of fun for the draft, and yeah, so check it all out at the link below there. All right, let's move on to our CHL awards, and there's lots of players we've talked about many times on this list, and for good reason, because they've been great this season and all finalists for these awards. So let's start with I said we're going to start with the Player of the Year, but that's one of the biggest ones. So let's push that down. We'll start with Defenseman of the Year, and the 3 finalists from the different leagues. We got Denton Mateychuk, Zane Parekh, and Vyacheslav Komarov, all guys we've talked about already here, all finalists for Defenseman of the Year. So I'll start with you, Peter. Who do you think will win? Let's start. Who should win it, and who will win it? Could be the same person.
Yeah, it's very difficult, because are we going by points? Are we going by overall skill set, the defensive side of the game? Because it's kind of like the Norris Trophy debate kind of thing. You know, are you going strictly by points? Are you going by the two-way game? Because, you know, in order to be Defenseman of the Year, you should be able to defend within your own zone. So at the moment, if we're going based on points, obviously Zane Parekh, you know, I believe had the most points out of all the 3. Most points. I think you just missed the mark for most 100-point mark in the Ontario Hockey League. He had 96. I believe Mateychuk had around 70. Gonna try and find the tab here. And everything's getting shifted on me. He had 75 points. And Komarov, I believe he had around the same as Mateychuk. So at the moment, I would probably lean towards Denton Mateychuk, because he does have that more refined defensive game to him. So yeah, Komarov had 69 points with both the Remparts and Voltigeurs. I would lean towards Denton Mateychuk, because he's got that better defensive game. Obviously, what Zane Parekh did is absolutely phenomenal, but I do have questions about, you know, so his defensive game, how he can lack the awareness every now and then. He's not as engaging when he's away from the puck at times. So there's still that bit of a factor there. Mateychuk is noticeable in all 3 zones, and although his defensive game is developing as well, I think he's a little bit more refined in that aspect. So we were going based off points. Yeah, Parekh would win it, but if we're going overall, I think Mateychuk is overall better player in terms of offensively and defensive game as well. So he would be my pick for defenseman of the year, but I don't think that's going to play out.
Yeah, it's just like the Norris Trophy in the NHL. It's usually the player that has the most points, not necessarily good defensively, wins it. So I mean, case in point, Erik Karlsson. I mean, that's not good defensively, yet he won. He has got 2 Norris trophies. So, all right, let's Dayton. Who do you got for this one? Is it are you looking at Mateychuk, or is it going to be someone else?
Well, I think Peter's pretty much hit everything on right on. Zane Parekh has an impressive point total, but there are questions about his defense and his overall impact. So to me, he's not the defenseman of the year. Vyacheslav Komarov has, really good defensive aspects to his game, pretty good puck mover, but he's not as effective in the offensive zone. So to me, he's more so a defensive guy. He got a breakout year, but to me, it's Denton Mateychuk. He's good in both ends. He's been the absolute play driver for the Moose Jaw Warriors. To me, that's a guy you want as your defenseman of the year. So that's, I think he should win it. I wonder if they do give it to Parekh because he did have a lot of points. Did he cross 100? I think he did, didn't he?
96.
96. Oh, he was close. He was on pace for 100 at one point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think putting up 70 points in the WHL as a defenseman, that's very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, along with his, I mean, like you said, Peter, he's still got to develop his defensive game, and that was one of the knocks on him when he was drafted, that a lot of offense, but defense was still developing. But it's developed. I mean, it has developed in the last year. So, the Columbus Blue Jackets, they've got a heck of a defenseman on their hands. Amongst all the other prospects they got. All right, let's move to the goalie of the year, and there's not a lot of big names that I guess everyone knows about, but these 3 had great seasons. So you got Brett Murwald, Jacob Oster, and William Rousseau. Dayton, who do you think will win this one?
Yeah, this is a tricky one because, like you said, there's not a lot of big names, big game stealers. They kind of sailed under the radar a little bit. But when I'm looking at a goalie, I really prioritize save percentage. I think that is the best thing that you can analyze a goalie for, because that is only them, right? Mm-hmm. You're getting the shots put onto you, and then you have to save them. And that is what your save percentage is. And maybe I'm weighing it a little bit heavier than I should, but when we have what we have, we use what we use. So for me, Brett Murwald is the most impressive. So he's playing with a weaker Vancouver Giants team, helped them to the playoffs with a .913 save percentage in 55 games. And then in the playoffs, despite posting a losing record of 1-4, he had a .924 save percentage. That's a very talented goalie who is keeping his team in despite having a weaker team around him. Mm-hmm. It also helps that he is from Saskatoon. So I will take that into consideration for my choice.
All right. Peter, who do you have for this one?
Yeah, this one was very, very tough as well, for all the same reasons that, Dayton mentioned. For me, not to say like I'm just going biased because of the OHL, but I really think Jacob Oster deserves, that award. So he'll probably get my vote in the sense that, he had that mixed results last season with the Guelph Storm and the Oshawa Generals, losing records, but this year he turned it around. 35 wins, 905 save percentage in the regular season. Kind of dipped in the playoffs, but then again, when you get shelled for as many goals as he did against a deep London Knights team, that is going to affect your numbers. And he was very, very solid throughout the playoffs and the run to the OHL final. And if there was going to be a big X factor for that London Knights, Oshawa Generals team, it was going to be Jacob Oster. And also, they didn't have one of their star players, Beckett Seneca. There were times where the Generals tried to press, but they didn't get a timely save. And I know that's probably counterintuitive to my point from Oster, but Considering the improvements and his development that he had coming into this year and how he was relied on heavily by the Generals and that they were able to get on that hot run and steal a ton of games and make timely saves as a result, I'm going to give it to him because of the fact that even though the results in the playoffs weren't that great against London, he still had a very strong outing and the numbers did back it up until that series.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is based on the regular season, I believe. Still, I mean, I don't think they take in consideration the playoffs. I don't think so with the CHL. I know the NHL doesn't, but I'm not sure about the CHL. But yeah, it's those two guys definitely deserving. All three deserving of being in this, being finalists. They all won awards in their own leagues. So yeah, lots of. I mean, I think overall, I'm not sure who. I mean, this is a tough one too. I'm leaning towards Merwald because he's in Vancouver here. But yeah, I'm just gonna say him.
I like it.
The Vancouver Giants.
Go for the homer picks. Those are fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, this one, I don't know if this is a landslide. It could be Rookie of the Year. Finalists Gavin McKenna, Jake O'Brien, and Emil Guit or some Gite. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. It's probably something like that. Peter, who do you got winning this Rookie of the Year? Is it Gavin McKenna all the way? I mean, obviously the other two had good seasons too, but McKenna was just out of this world.
Yeah, fortunately for the other two, it's Gavin McKenna, and it's not even a competition at this point. I really don't know what to say. I mean, he just absolutely torched the WHL. I mean, Jake O'Brien and even Riley Patterson and Sam O'Reilly did relatively reasonably well in the OHL. A lot more defensive structure in there. Not to say that WHL isn't strong defensively, because Gavin McKenna is able to do that against a very tough defense, a league known for their defense. So for him to put up the numbers that he did, yeah, he's going to get my Rookie of the Year.
And Dayton, I already know who you're going to pick. It's McKenna, right?
I'm not trying to be a homer with this one, but he's so clearly dominant. Even if you're not taking into consideration the playoffs and international play, he made the under-18 team as a 16-year-old and led them in scoring with 10 goals and 20 points in 7 games. Like, the kid is ridiculous. I think he led even the Tigers in the playoffs too with points, because the Tigers weren't super great. Of course, I can't pull it up here quickly. But he did have 6 points in 5 games. And they were against, I'm blanking on it now, Red Deer.
Yeah.
And Red Deer just kind of sent him home quick, which is unfortunate. Because he could have been an incredible playoff performer, and he'll have to wait. He'll have to wait until next season to be unbelievable.
Again. He'll do it.
Yeah. Like, props to the other two kids, Jake O'Brien and Emil Guite is what I would guess.
Both
were almost or just over point per games. They did very well for their teams in playoffs. It's like you're getting drafted next to Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
Great. Bobby Ryan had a fantastic career. He's second to Crosby. Like, you can't for that.
That's tough.
Yeah, McKenna's been insane. I mean, and they say he's not supposed to be drafted till 2026. I'll keep saying that. That's a big thing.
The other two guys are going to be drafted before him.
Yeah. And he's Rookie of the Year all the way.
Yeah.
All right, moving to this draft again. Top Draft Prospect Award. And this is 3 great names, and they're all going to be drafted in probably the first round. Definitely 2 of them. Caden Lindstrom, Zane Parekh, and Maxime Massé. Start with you, Dayton. Who's going to win this one? This one's a tough one. I'm not sure with this one.
This is tough. I am going to break my my Western streak here. I'm going to go with Zane Parekh, just because Caden Lindstrom had a large chunk of the season removed because of injury.
Yeah.
He did really good to start, and then a wrist injury took him out, and he wasn't able to compete in the top prospects game. He wasn't hardly able to compete in the playoffs. Like, he looked off. And Massey did have a bit of a downturn as well at the end of the season. He had a great start, just didn't quite continue. He still did fine. I was hoping for more, though. Freij has continued on. He has shown that he is destined for something pretty great. I hope that he rounds out the rest of his game, because if he does, he could be an absolute stud in the NHL. So,
Yeah.
I think he's going top 10, no question.
Yeah, he's probably going to be a top 10 pick. I'm not sure with how much, what's his offense going to translate to the NHL, how much that's going to be. Well, we'll find out. But yeah, it's supremely talented offensive defenseman, that's for sure. Peter, who are you going with this one?
Yeah, all the same reasons as Dayton. Zane Parekh. I mean, when you get to that 100-point mark as a defenseman, that itself alone is just absolutely impressive. And had Caden Lindstrom been healthy all year, I 100% believe that this would have been his award, despite the fact that maybe Parekh still would have pushed 100 points. I think it would have been very, very close, and I don't think it would have been a wrong answer if you picked Lindstrom or Parekh. But I do think that, with the time lost, with the injury and everything like that, Lindstrom really didn't quite get the outings in or viewings in or points, what have you. I mean, personally, I would still take him top 5, top 4 even. But, some teams may think otherwise. But then again, teams are going to look at the size and skill.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to know that the wrist injury played a factor, but we'll leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, Parekh didn't win my defenseman of the year, but he definitely warranted the top prospect award based on what he was able to accomplish in his draft year, because it is absolutely impressive. When are you probably going to ever see that again? I mean, maybe Landon Dupont can do it in the WHL. Who knows? Maybe setting high expectations, but I think he's still going to be a stud defenseman anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Parekh is definitely going to be my choice for the award.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go Parekh too. I mean, Lindstrom, like I say, definitely would have been higher up on that if he would have played all year and no injuries. Because I mean, very impressive what he did in the time he did play. And yeah, I think he's probably going to be a top 5 pick just based on his skill set and his size and all that stuff. So I think that's probably still going to happen. He's still going to be a top 5 pick. I don't know. He could fall out of the top 5. Depending on what the other teams do. All right, final award, Player of the Year. And there's 3 great names here. I mean, all these are definitely deserving, but it's going to be tough. Jagger Firkus, Easton Cowan, and Matthew Cataford. Peter, who are you going for this one? I mean, I say 3 great names here.
The homer in me wants to pick Easton Cowan because of that point streak in the regular season and playoffs. But man, what Jagger Firkus did, I mean, absolutely unbelievable. I mean, we talk about Zane Parekh pushing 100 points. Firkus almost had 130, 31 points clear of his next teammates, which were Atlee Calvert and Braden Yeager. That to me alone is impressive. And again, the WHL was very, very highly competitive. There were, I don't know how many 100-point players there were. I think there were at least like 7 or 8 in there.
There were 10.
10. And one of them was a rookie who is draft eligible in Tarek Parasek. But you look at the names also in there, Zach Funk, Riley Height, Berkeley Catton, Andrew Crystal. These were all supposed to be top names, and Firkus has continued to get better every single season ever since he got drafted. And to put up 60 goals, 65 assists, to me, I think that, everyone is going to point to his size, but he shows that size doesn't matter at all in his game. So he is going to be my pick for Player of the Year because he was just absolutely dominant from start to finish. I mean, I haven't really looked at like his game by game breakdown, but I could probably imagine that he had very little games where he had 0 goals or not 0 goals, 0 points in that aspect. So I'm gonna have to double check on that, but yeah, Jagger Firkus is going to be my Player of the Year.
Yeah, Dayton, is it Fergus for you as well, or?
It is. I think if you considered playoffs, I would maybe tend toward Cowan because he was just an incredible force for the London Knights in the playoffs. Got 34 points in 18 games, led the league, and was 7 points ahead of the next guy in Denver Barkey. He was London's driving force, and the 40-point streak, very impressive. I don't know if it's more impressive than what Jagger Firkus did, though. Like, that's an incredible season from an incredible player, almost a goal a game. Like,
Yeah.
that's incredible. I love that.
Four
You don't
games.
see that very much.
4 games where you didn't register a point for
Oh,
Fergus. I just wanted to jump in there. That was the 10 I was looking for.
I was hoping you'd find it while I vamped about
Yeah.
He's a really, really good player. He should have been on Team Canada. And technically he kind of was, but he should have played. Should have been there with a lot of WHL guys that they ignored.
Yeah.
Next year, I really hope he is, if he's still back in the WHL. But until then, I think he is the best prospect in junior this year.
Yeah. I agree. I think Fergus, like they say, Cowan definitely deserved all the stuff that he got in the OHL. He was the OHL MVP, right? So I mean, he's one of those guys that definitely was same level. But Fergus, what he did was just, and especially in a league that does not usually, they're a lot better defensively, and you're doing this against teams that are pretty good in that department. So yeah, over 60 goals, like I say, almost a goal a game. I mean, I don't know. I say he's got a good chance of making the Kraken next year. I don't know. If he can kind of, I'm not sure. I mean, the Kraken have spots open. He could push his way in, but he'd probably be back in the dub for maybe one more season, and then move to the AHL. So we'll see. He's definitely impressive this year. So yeah, player of the year for me too. Okay, that's the CHL awards. There's some others, but they're not as fun to talk about. There's a few others there. So let's move on to our draft profiles of the week, and we're just going to feature a couple profiles that have been published on the website. So Peter, I'll start with you. Who are you featuring, or what profile are you featuring, and who wrote it?
Yeah. Again, because we have so many out right now, it's very, very hard to choose. I really wish I could pick all of them, but that's probably just the answer that is whatever. But I am going to go with Jordan Orth and Nathan Villeneuve as my prospect profile of the week, because it has everything. It has the potential that he has. It has a player that has that, IQ awareness, the motor and energy that teams look for. He's got the physicality. He's got the defensive mindset and presence to be a very solid and founded two-way player. But there is a red flag there because of an incident where he got suspended for 15 games and a red flag. That's an instant red flag issue right there for abusing the social media policy within the league. I'm not going to get into too much specifics, but he did mention about that as well in his profile. But if that may ward some teams off, but the energy and impact that he has does say a lot about his game. But then again, the maturity factor, that's also going to play into his rank as well. Because I initially probably would have had him as, maybe early third. But as a result, he hasn't really, ever since that incident, he's kind of fallen down my radar because of that, the off-ice issues and maturity factor and character, which could bring into question. So Jordan Orth did a fantastic job of highlighting everything in that profile. So I would give that a very good read. Nathan Villeneuve by Jordan Orth.
All right. Yeah, that was just published, not that, I think a few days ago. So
yes.
Yeah, check that out. I'd say lots of other ones to check out too. Dayton, which one are you featuring here?
I think I'll feature, I was just looking through a few of them here. Of course, I want to talk about my own, but I'll talk about somebody else's. So I'm going to talk, William Espy's Alfons Freij profile is really in depth and really good and shows that this is a defenseman who could be a first round pick. He's ranked just outside of it for most rankings, but there are some that have him within the top 20. How can there be that much variability? Espy goes into how this is, kind of what makes him special and what he brings to the ice and why he could be a first round pick. Yeah, I really like sort of the depth that he goes into, how he talks about his skating. The intangibles that he brings.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good profile.
Yeah, so check that one out as well. I mean, like I say, Alfons Freij, we've talked about, he's probably one of the top Swedes that could potentially be drafted, especially defensemen. And I believe you picked him for Toronto in our mock draft, right? Yes.
Yes.
For
yes, the one that we've done here. The one that we've done here. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a few other mock drafts out. The writers one is out now too. So check that one out. We just released that a couple days ago, and it was different, quite a bit different from the one on the show here. So check that out and critique on whatever was picked. And I'm gonna feature my own just to be a bit of a because Sacha Boisvert, who was not picked in our writers mock draft, and he's projected to be a first round pick towards the end. I mean, his rankings kind of go from 20 to 25. So I mean, he could be drafted in there. I know, Peter, you had him at 25th. Andrew had him at 25th. Logan had him at 22. So I mean, he could. The lowest that they've got is Dauber at 30th. So he should be drafted in the first round, yet he wasn't in our writer's mock. Yeah. So according to us, apparently, he's going to be a second round pick. But I think he's going to be a first rounder. I mean, he's got so much ability to be that two-way center. I've been compared to guys like Anse Kopitar. I don't want to. It's Evgeny Malkin has also been. I don't want. That's too high. Kopitar is, I'd say, probably a better one. He's not at that level yet for defense, but he's developing that to be that two-way guy that can be relied on in all situations. His work ethic is beyond. I mean, looking at he takes, just in my research talking about it, a lot of his teammates look at him as one of the hardest working players on their team. And he just always works hard at the defensive side of the game. That's what he's working on right now because he knows the offense is going to be there. I had a great shot. So check out that profile. I did a bit of what I like doing with profile. I like trying to get quotes from their teammates and from coaches because obviously they know them best. So it's one. I just really got one of his teammates saying, he's super intense and competitive kid, never takes a shift off. So, I mean, that's a player I love, and that's probably why I picked him to do the profile on, because I love players like that. So take a look at Sacha Boisvert's draft profile. Probably going to be a first-round pick this year.
Fun fact, I believe his dad is an MMA instructor or a coach.
That
is really, really fun.
Yeah, that was one thing I came across too. Yeah, that was article that who was it? Scott Wheeler just put it out actually a few days ago. That boxing was a big part of his background. So yeah, he's an impressive guy. So we'll take a look at that profile and we'll see where he gets drafted this year.
Would not want to go toe to toe with him if you have to fight him on the ice.
No.
Just saying that if that's the case.
He knows that for sure. All right, let's move to our prospects of the week. And there's some names we've already mentioned on this episode. So let's dive in. Dayton, who you got?
Well, another guy I considered for the standout for the Moose Jaw Warriors was Denton Mateychuk. We've mentioned already, but he is the top scorer for the Warriors in the Memorial Cup. He has 2 goals, 2 assists. He's been consistently one of their better players on the ice at all times, helping them drive the play, get things going, and just it hasn't quite clicked this year it's their first Memorial Cup appearance in history. And they're doing as well as they could. Unfortunately, it's just they haven't quite got the wins. Mateychuk has been easily the team's MVP, and so he is my prospect of the week while also being the defenseman of the year.
Yeah, Dayton Mateychuk, Denton Mateychuk. Definitely a prominent name on this episode. All right, Peter, you teased his name. You did mention his name, so let's go more into who he is. Who's our draft prospect of the week?
Yes, and it is the London Knight, but it's not who you think. It is going to be Ruslan Gazizov from London Knights. As you looked at, as I mentioned, the death has been a very, very big reason why for the London Knights' success in this tournament. Gazizov is leading the tournament in goals with 3 and is already in the top 5 in scoring behind Mateychuk, Parekh, and Misa with those 3 goals in 2 games. I really think he's really starting to put his name on the map as a prospect that can be drafted. Was passed over the last few. I think this time around, with 81 points in the regular season, another 14 in 15 playoff games, and taking charge and scoring some timely goals in this tournament right now, I think he really has trying to get his name out there to scouts saying, hey, you know what? I'm definitely worth it. I definitely put in the work. One thing that really concerned me was not necessarily his character, but his over aggressiveness, ability to get involved too much after the whistle and everything like that. That really, he needed to try and temper that down a little bit, and he has. Obviously, that intensity and tenacity is still evident, but I've seen a little bit more control this time around. So I really think that he's been worth as a flyer. He could be a flyer this time around. So yeah, he's my prospect of the week, undrafted, but making a big impact for the London Knights.
All right, we'll see if he pushes himself into that into the conversation of being a late round draft pick. Some teams could, all the scouts, they're looking at these tournaments and all this stuff. So he's definitely put himself on the map, and maybe a team will take a chance on him. All right, I'm going for a Canucks prospect. Josh Bloom. He's actually the only Canucks prospect still playing now because everyone else is gone. But yeah, for the Saginaw Spirit, I mentioned his name earlier as a bit of a standout. He's got a goal already in 2 games, and he's wearing the A on his jersey as well. And he started the year in the AHL, but then got sent back to the OHL and had a pretty good rest of the season, 40 points in 34 games to end. And then he had 11 points in 17 in the playoffs. I don't know he's a very impressive player. I mean, I really liked that the Canucks, when they got him from the Sabres for basically nothing, and basically a free prospect. So, for what he's been doing in the OHL so far, and I thought he looked really good, even in the AHL games he did play, but obviously didn't get a lot of ice time. I thought probably better off just to play this last year in the OHL. I believe this is his last time he'll be here. He's 20. That's probably it. So, I mean, we'll see what he does overall, but I think he's still been pretty impressive for coming back, especially being, sent back from pro. And, that can be sometimes detrimental, but disappointing to having to get sent back to junior when you're playing in the AHL already. But yeah, he's taken it and played pretty well. So Josh Bloom is my prospect of the week. All right, well, there's another episode. Next week we're going to be starting a bit of a series looking at our top 10 lists that we've been going through, our positional rankings. And we'll be going through all the players there, just talking about them, where they were ranked on those top 10 lists. But thanks, Peter. Thanks, Dayton, for the show again, talking prospects, draft, all that fun stuff. Make sure you're checking out all of our stuff, talkingwriters.com, the draft guide. We got the mock draft out. We've got the Substack, lots of fun. We got updated rankings coming out. I think final rankings are going to start rolling out for you, Peter, for Logan, for everyone, because we got only 1 month to go today, because it's actually today a month till the draft. So June 28th and 29th, and we are on the 28th of May. So countdown is on. Make sure checking out all that. But until next time, we'll see you on another episode of Prospect Corner.